we'll just give it a couple more minutes and see if some more people join us before we get underway. For those that are sitting online at the moment, you'll notice that your camera is off and your microphone is off as well. It's set up that way on purpose. If you do want to ask a question to Charlotte today, you can either type it into the chat section, or you can, there's a little button at the top that says raise your hand. You can tap that and it'll, as you can see now, it's got like a little hand thing. If I see that, then I can turn your microphone on so that you can ask the question in person if that's how you wish to do it. And then once you've answered your question, if you just hit it again, it just goes away. So just see if anyone else joins us before we hand it over to Charlotte. We're actually running on time today, so that's a good start for us. Didn't have technical problems.
Yeah, no, we were all good.
The last two we've run, we've had technical issues, so. Right, might as well get underway. Everyone wants to get back to having dinner if they haven't. So if you do want to ask questions or anything tonight, Charlotte is happy for you to ask them as she goes. As I said, you can either put them in the chat function or the Q&A section, or you can do the raise your hand thing, which is at the top of your screen. Otherwise, I will hand this over to Charlotte from Fonterra, and she will talk about
sustainability. Climate change.
Cool.
Awesome.
All yours, Charlotte.
Cool. Thank you, Amelia. And thank you, everyone, for having me. So I'm Charlotte Vanderley. A little bit about myself. I'm a sustainability manager at Fonterra. What does that mean? I know. So where I sit in the business, it's quite a centralized sustainability team. My manager is the director of sustainability, also called Charlotte. You may have seen her around. She's constantly doing radio interviews and things like that. So Charlotte Rutherford. And what we do is, how I like to explain it, is we're kind of the middleman between talking to our farmers and our farmer-facing teams. So you would know Farm Source, but also talking to our global markets and our customers and understanding what their needs are. And then at the same time, talking to our board and others internal to Fonterra to talk about strategy and making sure that we're on the right track to meet all of our stakeholders' expectations. And a really cool part of my job, I think, which has been a really big focus of ours over the last 2 years since my team got put together, is that we're really looking to drive value and deliver that value from key customers in market to our farmers. We've been talking about sustainability for a while now, and we consistently get asked by farmers, show us the value, show us the money, and slowly, I know, but we are starting to trickle that money through and really be able to show the premiums there. And there will be more to come, which I always like saying, but I promise you there will be. So what I'll do today is talk a little bit about, I guess, our sustainability strategy, what those climate targets are that we have set, also our progress against them. It's been about a year on since we released what we called our climate roadmap. So there are a couple of things we can kind of talk about in terms of activities we've been up to and progress against those targets. And I will dig a little bit deeper into, I guess, that the farmer-facing part of it. So how we're expecting to reach that target we have around on-farm emissions. So like we said, you can ask questions as I go, but I will try and get through all of my slides in a decent amount of time because I don't want to take up your whole night. But yes, I'm very open to having questions throughout, or you're welcome to type them in. We can talk about them at the end as well. So this actually is recently we reviewed our strategy. So the last time we put out our strategy was in 2021. We haven't actually changed it a lot. So our purpose has remained the same. We have come up with a new vision. So that vision you can see there, the source of the world's most valued dairy. You would not believe how long it took to come up with that vision and how many words and things we argued over. But we do have that vision now, and I think it's something we can all be really proud of. In terms of the choices that we have, previous to this, we had 3 choices that focused mostly on innovation, sustainability, and I think it was farmer. What we've done is kind of build them out a little bit more, but in terms of sustainability is the one I'm talking about today, we acknowledge that we are on the right track. And so that choice there is really just to build on that position. Now, back in 2021, we talked about being a leader in sustainability. So that's the position we're going to continue building on. And I guess everything I talk about today kind of fits within that strategic choice there. Oh, so go next. Oh, there we go. Sorry, excuse me. So if we dig deeper into that building on our sustainability position, you can see that there's kind of 4 focus areas that we've pulled out. So sustainable value, that's what I was kind of referring to before in terms of really understanding what our customers want and the premiums that they would be, I guess, open to providing us for our leadership in sustainability. So that value is what we want to pull all the way through and deliver to our farmers. So like I said, we'd just be the middleman and would be able to really, deliver that value back to our farmers. Climate targets that I will talk about soon. It's what a lot of people talk about as being a carbon or climate tunnel at the moment. So all of our customers, there's many people around the world constantly talking about carbon emissions, climate change, global warming. I'm sure you've all heard it too. It can get a little bit, I don't want to say tiring, because I mean, that's what makes up a lot of my job, but it can get a little bit overwhelming, I guess. And when it's consistently being talked about like it is, sometimes I worry that we aren't thinking wider and how can we actually, I guess, farm in a way that reduces the impact that we have on the environment, because really at the end of the day, that's what we're looking to do. Which leads me on to nature, which is kind of a new focus for us. Although we've always cared about nature, we are now starting to see that others, I guess, in our supply chain and value chain, like our customers, and also, I guess, those who set regulation and things around in the EU and whatnot, they are starting to really care about nature as well. So that's really looking outside of just climate and thinking about waterways, soil, biodiversity, all of that. So it's pretty exciting to see that coming through, because I think this is really a place that New Zealand is able to stand up and kind of deliver a really unique position there, compared to our other, competitors in terms of global dairying regions like the EU or the US. I don't think they really have as good of a story to tell in that nature space. So I think that's really where we can start leveraging going into the future. Animal wellbeing is that final focus area. That is always going to be a focus area for us, I think. We have some of the highest standards of animal wellbeing compared to others globally. I think a lot of that comes down to just the way that we farm in terms of pasture-based farming, the fact that we have such high grass-fed diets for our animals, and compare that to, housed cow farming and being quite contained. And you would have seen it, the kind of factory farming that you see throughout the US and sometimes the EU as well. Often that is because of weather. So we can just be lucky with our New Zealand climate. But again, it's something to kind of be proud of and talk about when we're trying to really build, going back to that sustainable value with our customers. So that's our kind of 4 focus areas that make up our sustainability strategy. Now, this slide is one actually that always kind of gets brought up. And the reason I wanted to bring it up again, because we've used it quite a lot over the last, explaining why the co-op was setting an emissions target. But I look at it now and I still believe it stands true, even when you think about not just climate, but all of sustainability, because it's not just climate that we're going to have to start making, not targets, but, you know, ambitions on, to remain having that access to markets and customers. We are, I guess, customer driven. And although we can negotiate with customers on what they want, we still do take their direction on what to kind of deliver them in terms of a dairy product and the things that make that dairy product. We're finding customers are now asking a lot more about how that product was made rather than just what the product is. So what I mean by how it was made is all the farming practices that went in behind it, all the way down to even how many trees are on the farm that the milk came from, you know? So we're moving into a world where, yeah, the markets and the customers are really starting to care about how products were made. And that is how we're finding we can start creating a little bit more value there and premiums compared to other dairy products in market. Access to future funding. So that one just refers to banks and the ability to gain, I guess, lending from them. They have their own sustainability journeys and climate targets that they're trying to meet. So by us also being on that journey and supporting our farmers being on that journey, we're all moving towards that same space in terms of reducing emissions, I guess, per kg of milk solid. And again, I think in future, they'll also be having conversations about nature, wider nature-related targets and ambitions too. So how can we all work together to go towards a better future in that space? Increase legal and reporting obligations. So not only is this kind of a nice to do or a way that we can make more money or premiums, but we're actually obligated to do some of this stuff. So climate, there's a lot of climate reporting obligations. Our board are now personally liable. So we've had to disclose a lot of risks, and we call it the climate risk disclosure. We talk about it so much, and it's had to go through a lot of approvals here where we consider future climate scenarios and how we're kind of getting prepared for those or mitigating things so that we don't reach them, for example. And that is, yeah, we're obliged to do that legally. And if we haven't done the right due diligence and things, then we can come under a lot of, well, you might have seen it already. There's quite a few accusations of greenwashing and things like that. So we expect that is going to become even more of a thing in the future, which can be really costly for us and really time consuming too. So we want to get it right. And the fourth one there, I mean, I've already talked about it, but it is a strategic choice that we have made. So we do want to keep to that because, and the reason we make strategic choices is because we see that there's value there, and value means more money for our farmers, doesn't it? So our emissions profile. So just going back to, I guess, not the start, but I mean, this is what makes up Fonterra's emissions profile. Scope, I know that this is kind of jargon. There's scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. So really briefly, scope 1 emissions is the emissions that come directly from your business. So in Fonterra's case, that would mostly be our manufacturing sites. We have direct control over those. Scope 2 emissions, you can see that's only a small amount. So that relates to electricity and things that would then be used to, I guess, help the manufacturing sites keep operating. And then scope 3, the big green one, that is all of the emissions that come from, I guess, indirect sources. All of the on-farm emissions for Fonterra would come in under that. So you can see that that makes up the majority of our emissions profile. You could split it up in different ways. So you can think of this in kind of an on-farm manufacturing and shipping perspective. It doesn't exactly line up. For example, on-farm makes up about 90% of our emissions. Manufacturing is about 8% of our emissions, and shipping is 2%, which sometimes surprises people because often people like to think that shipping makes up a huge amount, especially because we are at the bottom of the world, but it does only make up a small amount of our emissions profile. So what are we kind of planning on doing? We have released I think I mentioned it before, the climate roadmap. So we released that about a year ago. And what is in there, it's publicly available. You're welcome to go into it. I do not warn, but I mean, I do note that it was created kind of with a customer view probably. So it's not really a farmer facing document, but it is public. Anyone can go in and see it. and it explains kind of what our targets are and how we plan to get there. Hopefully after listening to me go on, you won't need to go into it, but if you would like to, it is there. I think you can just Google it. So what's in there? That's scope 1 and 2 emissions reduction target. So scope 1 and 2, so think that's our manufacturing. We are planning to get a 50% reduction in these emissions by 2030, and that's based on a 2018 baseline. So a lot of this comes down to moving our coal boilers at our manufacturing sites to electrode boilers, biomass boilers, and also decommissioning some of those coal sites that we don't, I wouldn't say it's that we don't need anymore, but perhaps we've found a different way that we can create the product having to use those coal-powered sites. Sorry. This one's pretty exciting because we are well on track to delivering on this target. We have reduced 18.5%, and with a lot of funding from government, that is, we are able to kind of move those sites into, pretty exciting new technology, electrodes and biomass boilers. So this is pretty cool. You would have seen it in, I think we're consistently putting out news articles and things about the sites. And I believe the 1st of November, so not too long ago, about a month ago, we officially got out of coal in the North Island. So we still have some South Island sites that use coal, but North Island, we're completely free of it from last month onwards. So that's a pretty awesome goal, or well, a goal that we've now achieved. So yes, we are on track to this. Next, which I'll be going into a little bit more, is that we call it FLAG. So FLAG stands for, oh, I hope I get it right. I think it's Forest Land Agriculture. I'm not sure what the G stands for, something else. And so this is a global standard that we have aligned to. It's called the Science Based Target Initiative, and it includes all of our on-farm emissions. So our target here is a 30% reduction in on-farm emissions per tonne of fat and protein corrected milk by 2030 from a 2018 baseline. Sounds like a really big number, I know, but let me step through it. And I would just like to point out that is not what we're expecting every single farm to do. It's a co-op-wide target, and it is an intensity one. So it's not an absolute reduction, it is intensity. And so that allows us to think about how we can be more efficient in the production of milk rather than just, cut cow numbers or cut supplier numbers or something like that. We're looking at that efficiency. And I know I get a lot of questions about why we've chosen that over an absolute reduction. And often my answer is that, that's how customers buy our product, is on a per kg of milk solid basis. And so to support them and also to allow farmers to achieve this by becoming more efficient rather than, like I said, cutting cows, we see that it's the preferred kind of option. So how are we planning on getting there? If we break it up into the different buckets, 7% from on-farm action. So that is that adoption of better farming practices, being more efficient on farm. Again, it's not for every single farmer to do. It's more, I guess, finding where on each farm there could be opportunities to become more efficient. And on average, across all of our supply base, we would hope to get to 7%. There's already lots of farmers out there that are really efficient. And of course, there's ones as well that are on that other end. And so we really want to help that other end, I guess, pull up towards the average more. Moving on to novel technology. So this is I find it quite exciting. However, it is a bit of a grey area, I guess you'd say right now, because we don't have anything in market just yet in terms of a methane mitigation technology. But once we do, that's what would come in under here. And we have estimated we'll get 7% emission reduction from it by 2030. So a lot of what we're doing here is through an investment in AgriZero NZ. So they are a individual or independent to Fonterra body in which many stakeholders across New Zealand have invested in. However, I think Fonterra has invested the most. It's definitely the most significant. And what they do is research different technologies, and they look at how they can commercialize them and bring them to market for New Zealand farmers specifically. This is quite a unique, not problem, but I guess a bit of a challenge and opportunity for New Zealand, because others overseas that aren't quite as pasture-based as us are able to use different kind of technologies on farm. So this is where sometimes that housed cow system might offer more opportunities currently, because they're able to use things like feed supplements or methane capture in their ceilings and roofs, and other things that fit their systems a little bit better than our systems right now. So we are having to look into quite different technologies, which is why sometimes we do have to work quite independently, I guess, to others around the world. But that's why we've got this group out there researching. They have said, what is that? I think they have said that they'll have 2 technologies in market by, I think it was 2027 or 2028. I'm not sure what those are yet, but if you do look on their website, they do share a lot of information about what technologies they're looking into. A couple of them are a ruminant biotech, so that is a slow release methane inhibitor, that you it's a bolus basically, I believe. Biolumic, which is an interesting one. You can look into all of these. I think there's a methane vaccine also that they're looking into, and a couple of other kind of enzymes and probiotic related technologies as well. So there's a bunch there. I would recommend going into that website because it's pretty interesting. Carbon removals. So this is all about carbon sequestration from vegetation on farm. So it's not just new vegetation, but existing vegetation as well. And what we're doing in this space, working with the technology developer to get much better satellite imagery of our farmers' vegetation currently, so that they're able to use that in their emissions footprint. We know that there's already vegetation out there. It hasn't been accounted for yet, but we do expect to be able to pull that in, account for it, and by 2030, we should have at least, I'd say, 8% that we can reduce from our 2018 baseline. So that includes everything planted since 2018, plus anything existing at that time too. But I do like to remind people, if it is existing, it's not growing as quickly, obviously, so it's not going to be sequestering as much carbon. So often those older trees and things, they're not going to have as much potential in this space compared to new vegetation. But no, it will still be counted. That final one there, historical land use change, this really just comes down to carbon accounting. So when land was deforested back in the day, essentially you get a 20-year responsibility window. So what that means is you have to account for a certain amount of emissions for the next 20 years after you've deforested. It's basically a way just to make sure that you've accounted for this action that you've done, and probably to stop people from doing it. I'm not sure. But what it means is that when you hit that 20 years, those emissions roll off your footprint. So by 2030, we can expect at least 8% of those emissions to roll off, as long as we don't do any further deforestation or conversion of land, which is not common, obviously, in New Zealand anymore. It's pretty hard to get that. In fact, I think legally you wouldn't really be able to. So that's kind of what makes up our that 30% target. Sorry, I will just go back. So we can probably report on or measure progress on currently. Like I said, novel technology, bit of a grey area right now. So we haven't been able to put anything in that bucket just yet. Carbon removals were really close, so we're expecting that report to come out early next year for our farmers, and then we can start accounting for emissions within that bucket. Historical land use change will just keep ticking along, but that on-farm actions, we are able to measure year on year. So we can keep measuring year on year and making sure that we are on track. So on that one, how do we expect, I guess, to get to 2030? We have measured out, I guess, what makes up those efficiency improvements that we have kind of seen based on the data we have from our farmers. You can see it there on the slide. So we have modeled it out that if improvements were made across at least, I think it was 50% of our farms, because we can't expect all farmers to make change, we would get to that kind of 7% reduction. So this is across animal efficiencies, nutrient optimization, and other efficiencies too. So thinking about imported feeds and things, and making, I don't want to say better choices, but maybe lower emission choices. So where are we at currently? As you can see here, I'll just explain it. Hopefully it's clear, but what this graph is showing is that the blue is a year-on-year forecast that shows a linear improvement if we were to kind of track down incrementally right through to 2030, and then we would be reaching that 7% reduction that we're going for. Of course, we can't expect to do it in a linear fashion because of, well, you guys would know better than me, seasons. You never know what the weather's going to do. It also comes down to milk supply, and of course it all comes down to management practices. Remembering that I know that all farmers are always looking at ways that they can do things a bit better or more efficiently, but we haven't started talking about emissions efficiency in these years that it's showing, because we have kind of gone back and looked at 2018 before we even talked about all of this. So I am hoping as we go forward, we start seeing the benefits of, I guess, these conversations and other things we can get out to farmers, like funding or better reporting and things like that. But as you can see, that green line is sitting below that linear blue area, which means we are on track, which is really awesome. Of course, we do need to keep moving in that direction. So there's still more to do, but it is promising that we are seeing that. We do only have data up to 2023. It's kind of a lag in how we get the data. So we work with ag research on this, and it takes about a year to get the previous year's kind of data. So we only just got through 2023, which is the 22-23 season. But yeah, usually this is quite a good slide to show, because it does show, the hard work is paying off. Right, an even better slide to show, which I do promise, like I said, hopefully these opportunities will get more in volume and more, I guess, money-wise in future. But these are a couple of examples of how our customers are starting to support farmers. So you would have seen the Nestle 1 to 2 cents. So that came out in the end at 1.4 cents for farmers who achieved the cooperative difference. Mars have also provided funding, which has allowed for a program called Greener Choices. So if you haven't seen this, Greener Choices is basically a program at FarmSource that discounts certain products that we sell through FarmSource that might be, a better sustainability choice. So it's trying to guide farmers as to what products you can purchase and discount those. We also have a tools and services pilot that just went out. What that did was offer farmers certain tools and services. I believe there was herd testing related services, maybe Trev and another kind of reporting or data collection type of software. So there are a couple of discounts, I guess, for those if farmers wanted them. And Yum is another customer that actually provided a little bit of funding to, again, put some farm management software on farms. I think that was only a small group of farmers in the Canterbury region. There's a few other things going on as well. And behind this, Nestle have actually put forward some funding for tree planting and a greenhouse gas mitigation specific project where certain farmers have volunteered to be a part of it. And they can get funding for certain things if they can kind of show that it's going to reduce emissions. So we're building out, I guess, the portfolio here of things that customers are offering. And I do hope that we can continue building that out. The reason I also like to show this, because often we like to think in New Zealand, and I think it was true for a time there, that because of the way that we farm, we are the lowest emission producers of milk. So we always had that kind of advantage. However, as you can see here, we are, if you look at the dark blue line, so that's Fonterra, back during our baseline, so 2018, if you ignore the grey one, which is Origin Green, they're Ireland, and they only their data kind of recently, so we were able to add it in. Also, they don't include peat soils and I think land use change. And so actually I'm a little bit hesitant really to compare that to ours, because I do feel like theirs would be higher if they included everything that we did. But you can see back in 2018, if you don't include them, we were the lowest. However, move through to 2023, and you can see that the likes of Arla and Friesland Campina, DFA, which is Dairy Farmers of America, so we're talking the big guys in EU and USA, they have caught up. And in fact, some of them have actually dropped below us. It's not to like scare anyone or say that we're not doing a good job, but it's just to show that others around the world, like I kind of referred to before, have these different opportunities available to them because of the way that they farm. So they're able to kind of implement these technologies, maybe reduce emissions in their supply chain a little bit easier than us, and they've been able to drop their emissions. So to remain kind of in that front pack, we are going to need to continue reducing our emissions. And if we do reach our 2030 target like we're expecting to, you can see here we do kind of get back that advantage of being in the lead. However, these are kind of the top, I guess, milk producers around the world. So if you threw in a different one, you'd probably find a super inefficient milk producer. So this is all in the front pack. And I think what this shows is it's really a ticket to the game now, rather than something we can point to and say we're better than everyone else. However, like I said before, I think the way that we can start doing that a little bit more is leaning in on that nature piece, and talking about our biodiversity and our waterways and the way that we do pasture-based farming. Because surprisingly, I think we assume people know that that's how we farm. But when I talk to others overseas, they still think that even though we talk about pasture-based, they still think we're putting our cows in a shed overnight every night, or they don't really understand what grass-fed really means, and that the majority of our diet really is grass-fed. I think it's, 96% or something like that. So yeah, there's a lot of education that still needs to happen between us and our markets for them to understand how we farm here. Which leads me on nicely to what I want to say, which is the data, the reports, and the plans that we make, which I know can be really horrible for farmers to go through in terms of all of the data collection that needs to go into this, and all the papers and I know how frustrating that is. You didn't become a farmer to bloody fill out these forms, did you? But it is something that we can kind of point to, and we really stand out in the market when we show our customers we have an insights report for every single farm, and 95% of our farmers now have a farm environment plan. 90% of them have a animal well-being plan. There is no other milk producer that has been able to show this level of data collection and then giving back these kind of reports to their farmers. And so we definitely find that when we share this in our meetings with customers and when we're trying to get sales and things, this is what makes us stand out. So this is acknowledging it. I mean, if you get frustrated with this kind of thing, I completely understand, but I hope it makes you feel better knowing that it is used in these conversations with customers, and they're super impressed by it. So it's very, very helpful. Our insights report. So opened your insights report and you are a Fonterra supplier, please do. We have just put out, I think it was a month ago now, maybe 2 months ago, put out our recent farm insights report. Every year they, I would like to think, are getting better. And what they do is kind of show you where you can, not where you can improve, but I guess guide you as to where there might be risks on farm in terms of efficiencies. And what it also does is benchmark you against others in your area. And it provides you, for example, if you were to make a change on farm, how much that could save you financially. I know that there's a whole lot of complexities in behind that. And if you change one thing on farm, then another thing will change. But this insights report is a really good way to kind of start thinking about where there might be efficiency improvements to make on farm. We're also starting to work a lot more with others in the industry. So now we're trying to link up the different data that is collected from the likes of LIC through Minder, and also we're looking to partner with others in the industry too, so that all you'll need to do is kind of click a button, and then we're hoping to pull in the data so that you don't need to duplicate what you're putting into all these different reports. So hopefully in future, you'll see a lot more of that, and you'll only need to be giving this kind of data once, and all of those in the industry will have access to it if you choose. So pretty exciting to hopefully reduce the compliance burden for you guys. This one I just like to show because, like I kind of referred to before, not all farmers are needing to, reduce by 7% or make massive changes on farm. There's farmers that are super efficient, as you can see up I'm not sure what side of the screen it is for you, but up the left-hand side, but you can see this really big tail down the end. So this is the more, I guess, inefficient farms, and you can see there is actually quite a lot of opportunity there to pull those up to the middle. Now, at this point, a lot of people say that probably comes down to farm system or farm region. But what you can see here, I've just pulled in this graph to show emissions per farm system, because you can see these really long arrows on either side of the blocks. There's really efficient and inefficient farms in every single system. So we're not asking for farms to kind of change systems, but we're asking them to move from, if they're at the top there, to move closer to the bottom. And that can be done across all systems. I don't have my slide, sorry, that shows the different regions, but it's the same in when you're looking at different regions as well. There's really efficient and really inefficient farms in every single region. So it's not about systems, it's not about the region you're in. There will be opportunities to kind of move on this graph. And who knows, maybe I'm speaking to a bunch of farmers now who are already really efficient and you don't need to make much change at all, if any. And in that case, hopefully in future, you will be the ones who get kind of those premiums or those opportunities with customer funding and things like that. So just some examples, I guess, of opportunities on farm if you did have some. So when we're looking at reproduction, think 6-week in calf rate. So we want to lift our average from about 66% to 78%. By doing that, not only will you have benefits in increasing your kg of milk solids per cow, because that cow will be producing for a longer period of time probably, but by doing so, you will also be improving on your emissions per kg of milk solid as well. In fact, we've found if it goes from that average up to our target, 1%, not increase, but improvement on emissions just there, which is pretty significant. Again, milk quality, so thinking mastitis and somatic sow count, dropping, I think the average currently in New Zealand is 172. So if we were to drop that down to 100, you would see all of those benefits there as well. And nutrient optimization. So an example there is thinking about dry matter grown per kg of nitrogen. And again, that has some pretty awesome improvements you can make on productivity and emissions as well. Okay, this pretty much does bring me to the end. I just wanted to kind of, I guess, share the opportunity today that we have, like I've talked about, is that climate space, the low emissions, and looking for those efficiency gains. What that will do is open us up to more sustainable value from our customers, which will start flowing through to you soon. Something we're still very much focusing on. However, I kind of implied it. Nature and ecosystem restoration is something we definitely see coming up in the future. So just like climate obligations have come through regulation and things, I think nature is definitely going to be next up, especially in the EU. So deforestation regulation is starting to come through, and we are starting to think about what we'll need to do in terms of restoring parts of New Zealand to get it back to native ecosystems, and how can kind of farmers help in getting us there, which is exciting. I mean, it's going to be a really great outcome as long as we can figure out a way to do it that, I guess, doesn't obviously impact milk productivity. And third, is that one I kind of implied data and how important it is. So without data, we aren't able to really tell that story to our customers about the climate journey or the nature journey or anything else that our farmers are able to do on farm. Without the data, we can't talk about it. So I just want to acknowledge that data is a huge thing here in what we use in our sustainability team and when we talk to our customers. Right, that was me. I don't think I even have a thank you slide. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So has anyone got any questions for Charlotte?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I didn't, it didn't look like I had any hands up throughout. So hopefully
No,
people aren't all asleep.
No, I did check and no. And I was even trying to do it while I was so be like, can I come up with any questions? But then every time I came up with something, you answered it. So I was like, well, that's fine. I don't need to worry about that one. So yeah, if anyone else is, oh, here we go.
Lynn, hi.
Hold on, Lynn.
Can we figure out how to unmute?
This should let me do it. Lynn, can you unmute your from your end? Because I've allowed your microphone.
It doesn't look like it is getting unmuted.
Because I've allowed it, so she just needs to turn the microphone on. Or you can just type in the question if you...
Just when we said we weren't having any technology issues.
I know, we were doing so well.
Yeah.
I definitely think that you've been extremely informative. I don't think there's anyone out there that possibly feels like they missed out on learning anything from you. That you covered pretty much everything.
I hope so.
It's a great thing though. Like I think the a lot of
here and Jock is also trying to talk to us.
I'm guessing it's Helen. Helen, can you just turn the microphone on your end? So like unmute yourself up in the top. How do you do it?
Oh,
yep, I can hear you.
I think we can hear you.
Yep.
Right, a quick question for you, Charlotte. You briefly touched on somatic cells and what have you, and milk quality. Silly question for you. Well, it's not a silly question. Why aren't Fonterra paying us for it being, low somatic cells then? You made the reference to it.
No, that's a really good question. It's not a silly question at all. Why aren't we? Yeah, I guess whenever we think about things that we could, I guess, pay premiums on as part of our cooperative difference, which is how we kind of do that, we probably need to think on the other end of it as well. So how are the farmers going to think who aren't able to, I guess, reach those thresholds? A lot of that framework that we have there, though, is related to milk quality. So you aren't able to reach the higher levels, such as that second level, if you haven't reached a certain amount of days with high milk quality. Somatic cell count obviously comes into providing high milk quality days. So I would say, in a way, we are paying farmers to have a low somatic cell count in a more indirect way. And honestly, we get a lot of stick for that as well, because I know even my parents will have a bad day on farm and suddenly their somatic cell count shoots up and they've missed out on that second tier of the cooperative difference, which means I know it's only a couple of cents, I believe, added on to that first tier, but it's still quite a lot at the end of the day for a farm to miss out on just because a couple of days of bad somatic cell count. So we do, I guess, pay for it in that way, but we do need to just be careful of being fair, I guess, to all of our suppliers and being conscious that sometimes it's not really their fault if they suddenly have a couple of days of bad somatic cell count.
But if you were blatant about it and actually, not worried about the indirect. Just be blatant and say, if you meet the threshold, for the want of a number, less than 120, you're going to get 2 or 3 cents.
Right. Yeah.
And
actually set a threshold for it.
Yeah. It'll drive the incentive to be more effective.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, you're right. Maybe there's a different way that we could talk about achieving those milk quality thresholds, but I think that is the point of cooperative difference in terms of that milk quality part. But you're right. If somatic cell count is such a big area that is going to see emissions efficiency improvements, then perhaps it's something we need to review as to how we talk about it with farmers.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jock. Anyone else?
Can Lynn get her microphone working? Or Lynn, you're welcome to type it into the box.
If you just okay. So Lynn,
here we go.
Yes,
I think this is working.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, this is a simple question, I guess. So you're wanting to give more credit for on-farm vegetation plantings. So what say a farm has, and you're also considering animal welfare. So a farm has shade trees and shelter belts, but they're an exotic species rather than native New Zealand natives. So then they have to remove them to, let's just say that they were encouraged through policy to remove the Lawson cypress hedges or macrocarpa or whatever. Where does that leave them with the carbon accounting?
No, really good question, and something I'm still trying to figure out myself as I work through this whole nature piece. So it's kind of this strange scenario that we're in where climate outcomes, so looking at the best vegetation to sequester the best amount of carbon versus any kind of native ecosystem restoration kind of efforts, they aren't going to work together very well. So we do need to think about going forward how we're going to balance those, because in no situation would we be saying take out your exotic species and put in native ones. Definitely not. And if I'm honest, we are still very much in that early stage of understanding how we would go out on this nature piece, and how we talk about New Zealand natives in that kind of space. So no, I'm not saying to take out your exotics. And because I know exotics do actually sequester carbon quicker than natives, don't they? So it is a case of, if you're going to put in new plantings, what's best for the land and what outcome you as the farmer trying to get out of it. And as Fonterra, I think we should act as kind of that point where we can point you in different directions based on what your outcome or your preferred outcome is. So whether that's to plant natives or to plant species that are going to sequester carbon quicker, I think either option is fine. We just need to think about, what's our preferred outcome and what's your preferred outcome. It's an interesting space, this whole native ecosystem restoration. It's very new. And so I don't know yet exactly how we're going to, I guess, roll it out. Or if we take a step back and just say that any kind of on-farm vegetation is good and that we just want to improve that in total. It doesn't matter if it's native or not.
Thanks, Lynn. Anyone else? I think you've stumped everybody. So if no one else has any questions, then I think we can leave it there for tonight. Thank you so much, Charlotte, for your time this evening. You're such an amazing presenter. It's you. We could just sit here and listen to you talk about different things because you're very engaging in the way that you speak, which I think is amazing. You can
get me back and I can talk to you about my running next time.
Yeah, that's so. Before we started the meeting tonight, Charlotte told us that she went for a run, which was a warm up because she's running the Kepler track this weekend. Because
Because why not?
She's a crazy person. So we wish you luck.
Thank you.
With that too, because
I'll go check out all the natives down there.
Yeah, to be honest, it's a beautiful track. So hopefully you're not running too fast and you actually do get to enjoy it.
Yeah.
But
no, awesome.
Just a casual 60k run on your weekend. Good luck.
Thank you.
But yeah, thank you again for your time this evening, and we greatly appreciate your knowledge and the kind of expertise that you can bring to us. If anyone does have any questions that they think of after this, feel free to send them through to me and I can pass them on to Charlotte. And Charlotte can send us back any answers that she's got or any more research that she might be able to help you out with any of that. So don't hesitate if you come up with something after we finish tonight and you think, oh, I should have asked that. Charlotte is really good to go back and deal with. She did present for us earlier in the year at the conference as well, and she was amazing then, but I think she's been able to give us even more information tonight, which is amazing. So I won't hold up anybody any longer. Charlotte can now go and have her dinner. And
I do have it just here.
Yes.
Amazing. Well, thank you everyone, and yeah, reach out if you need to.
Cool. All right, well,
awesome.
Everyone enjoy your night and we will see you next time.
Cool. Thanks,
Charlotte.
See you later.
Bye.